Hello and welcome to another edition of Currently in Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano, and on today's program we will get an update on the new Yawkey Housing Resource Center that's being built by Father Bill's in Mainspring here in Quincy. Some other Father Bill's Mainspring news as well. First, though, as always, we take a look at the weather and the news for you. Currently in Quincy, a lot of clouds out there, just a few sunny breaks. 58 degrees right now this last day of September, so it's certainly feeling like fall with a high today around 60. The clouds will increase throughout the day today. Chilly night tonight down to the upper 40s, and October is coming in rather cool and damp with the remnants of Hurricane Ian making himself known tomorrow. It'll start out showery in the morning, turn into a steadier rain by tomorrow afternoon. Temperatures only in the upper 50s, kind of a raw feel to the day tomorrow. Chilly again tonight, tomorrow night. Temperatures dip down to the lower 50s. Then the wind picks up on Sunday. It'll be out of the northeast. Could be 30-40 mile per hour wind gusts at times on Sunday with a lot of clouds and a high only in the mid 50s. Still rather cool and cloudy on Monday with a high about 55 degrees. Most of next week actually looks rather unsettled and fall-like. But again, it's cloudy and 58 in Quincy right now. Checking the news for you today, Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch will be asking the City Council for $23 million more to complete the new Quincy Police Station. Koch says inflation is pushing the construction costs much higher.
Because of the time it takes to get materials, but also the cost of things is really crazy. And Public Safety Headquarters is dealing with a major cost. And it's not an overrun in the typical way of the project has slowed down and extra hours and change orders. It's just simply the cost of building it. With materials and labor today, it's a challenge. So, yeah, Monday night, I don't know the final amount right in front of me, but it's going to be significant. We'll be going to the council with that request for appropriation so that we can get this building finished, underway and finished. And I certainly remind people, and the council is certainly aware of this, that this is a 50 to 100 year building. This is being built with very good specifications, with top quality materials so that the building lasts. And, I've seen over the years when things are done on the cheap, including the police station, when the addition was done, $10 million was spent on that, and it was falling apart in no time. So, it's important and imperative we do it right so that it's around for a long time.
City Council did previously approve $120 million for that new public safety complex, but the mayor said that also included site preparation, land purchases, and a new public park for first responders. The new complex will be built at the site of the current police station on C Street and will also house the fire department's administration and Office of Emergency Management. Mayor will ask for the additional appropriation at this coming Monday night's City Council meeting. There has been yet another delay in the manufacturing of some new MBTA red and orange line subway cars. The T says that supply chain issues and workforce shortages related to the pandemic will delay the delivery of 252 new red line cars until the summer of 2025 and 152 new orange line cars until next summer. Originally, the red line cars were expected in the summer of next year. The orange line cars this past January. The T says they were exploring several options, including imposing some hefty fines on the Chinese company CRRC that is manufacturing those new cars. Foul play not suspected after the bodies of a man and woman were found on the MBTA Red Line tracks in Quincy early Monday morning. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office has identified the victims as 20-year-old Claire Granada from South Boston and 20-year-old Teneri Rodriguez of Lowell. A train operator spotted the bodies along the northbound side of the tracks just north of the Wollaston station just after 6 Monday morning. Investigators say it appears the victims came in contact with the electrified third rail and died at the scene. Red Line train service was replaced by buses for about 5 hours during that investigation. A new statue of First Lady Abigail Adams will be dedicated in Quincy Center in November. Mayor Thomas Koch says the new 7-foot bronze statue will be located in front of the United First Parish Church, where a former statue of Abigail and a young John Quincy Adams once stood. The former statue was relocated to the Adams Walkway in Marymount Park earlier this week. As some students from the nearby Central Middle School watched, Mayor commissioned a new statue after residents complained that Abigail should be represented in Quincy Center. The same sculptor that created the new statues of John Adams and John Hancock in Quincy Center crafted the new statue of Abigail. A dedication ceremony will be held on November 5th at 11 a.m. A memorial service will be held tomorrow for a Quincy police officer who was shot and killed in the line of duty 95 years ago. Alfred Hollis was in his first year on the job and was 32 years old when he was shot and killed during a burglary call at a local hardware store in 1927. A small marker at his resting place at St. Mary Cemetery in West Quincy will be replaced with a long-awaited headstone during an 11 a.m. ceremony tomorrow. Quincy police officers and members of the public will gather in the parking lot of the former St. Mary's School on Crescent Street at 10:30 and then proceed to the cemetery for a graveside service. Hollis was survived by his wife and 3 young daughters when he died. Extended members of his family will participate in tomorrow's ceremony, and the public is invited to attend. By the way, the suspect in that case was arrested after a shootout with police in Connecticut. He pleaded guilty, was sentenced to life in prison, and has since died. That is our check of news today. Coming up, we chat with Pat Ronan of Father Bill's and Mainspring next. Welcome back. You may have noticed a lot of construction activity going on Broad Street here in Quincy, right across from the current Father Bill's homeless shelter. That is the new Yawkey Housing Resource Center that is going up to replace the emergency shelter. Pat Ronan, the Director of Community Relations for Father Bill's and Mainspring, is joining us remotely today, feeling a little bit under the weather, but not so bad, Pat, that you can't take some time to chat with us. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Joe, for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and your audience and being flexible today with the remote option.
Not a problem. That is, the new normal here for the past 2 years, I think is with us for the foreseeable future as well. But as I mentioned, a lot of construction activity that's going on with your new Yawkey Housing Resource Center. But before we talk about that, maybe we should do a little refresh as to what exactly is happening to replace the emergency shelter on Broad Street.
Yeah, Joe. So over 10 years ago, our agency, Father Bill's and Mainspring, took a hard look at our strategic plan. And our mission has always been to end homelessness, not just manage it. And so, as you know, Father Bill's place on Broad Street in Quincy is a former RMV building. I think about 7,700 square feet, one floor, not exactly the ideal location for a shelter or really for a place where people can come and get the services they need to, get back on their feet. So we always were looking at trying to change the model. And so we came up with the plan based on our own research and best practices for a housing resource center, which essentially would replace the overnight shelter model with a day center. So no longer would people just be coming to our services at night for a bed and a meal and then leave in the morning. We will still continue to provide that service, but we knew that we needed to provide more in order to really get ahead of someone's crisis and help them avoid staying in the shelter. So the day center model is something we've been working on now, like I said, for over a decade, but really in earnest for the last 5 years or so. And as you know, as you talked about in the news roundup, the city of Quincy, their plans to build a new public safety headquarters was coming and was going to involve our property, which is city-owned property. And so we saw that as an opportunity, and the city did as well, to relocate and move forward with our new day center model. And so that's what you're seeing take shape now across the street at 39 Broad Street. It's a two-phase project. Phase one is a two-story, 15,700 square foot building that would house the day center, which would include a healthcare clinic, access to technology, a library, case management, meeting rooms, co-located services, a dining hall, and then we would still have the emergency shelter, hopefully with reduced bed stays because of the day center. And then the second phase, which will be a little bit staggered, a few months behind, is a four-story, 20,000 square foot building, and that would contain 30 permanent supportive housing units for formerly homeless guests. So that's the Yawkey Housing Resource Center in a nutshell. We're very excited about it. The community has been tremendous in their support. The city, Mayor Koch, the city council, they've been supportive, both with their time and resources to make sure that this project can happen on time, and it works within the timeline for the public safety headquarters.
And as I mentioned, construction is well underway, and we can show some folks some current photos of what the scene looks like right now as I ask you to explain a little bit about the various funding sources, Pat, that had to be put together to make this project a reality.
Sure. Well, as you're showing the photos, I know that these are from a recent tour. Actually, 2 nights ago, our board of directors had a chance to go down and check out the property. And as you'll see, it's coming along nicely. Delbrook JKS is doing a tremendous job with the construction. And so we're getting close to a topping off ceremony for that first building. Which we're hoping will be opening by late spring of 2023. So, things are moving along. And for the funding, it's a $24 million property in total. And the state was very generous with funding to, take on a majority of the costs. And then we had to privately raise, I should mention that the city of Quincy is also contributing as well. $1 million from their affordable housing trust. And of course, the land itself is city-owned land. So we have a lease with the city of Quincy, which we're very grateful for. And then we have a campaign called the Path Home, which is to raise funding to basically fill the gaps, to make sure that not only can we build the development, but also that we can sustain the services and the programs on site. And I'm very happy to say that our goal for the campaign was $10 million, and we are almost there. We're at $9.8 million right now. So if you round up, we're there.
That's right.
But unfortunately, that's not how it works. So just I want to, point out some of the very generous supporters locally in the Quincy area: the Arbella Insurance Foundation, Quincy Mutual Group, South Shore Bank, the Flatley Foundation, Eastern Bank, Rockland Trust, Blue Hills Charitable Foundation, and of course the Yawkey Foundation, for which the building is named, very generous with a $2 million gift. So we have just been blessed, and the community has really rallied around this initiative as well. With small donations and also just calls to be like, hey, how can we help out? How can we be part of this new model, whether it's through volunteering or even through advocacy? We've been very, very lucky and fortunate to have the community's support behind this project, because it's a bold plan. And, at a time where, the pandemic arrived and construction costs increasing, it's a unique time to be building something like this. But we've been able to get it done because of our wonderful community.
And I know initially the plan was to relocate the emergency shelter to a temporary location until the resource center was complete, but that's not the case now, right?
It is not. And we are, grateful to the city of Quincy that they said, you can continue to operate at Father Bill's Place, which is at 38 Broad, until the new Housing Resource Center is open, which will be in late spring. And at that point, we will be relocating the shelter to 39 Broad Street. And then Yeah, so no temporary shelter needed, which is great not only for our guests and our staff, but just logistically, it's a much smoother process.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I mean, it seems like such a simple, basic premise, right? Give homeless people a place to go 24 hours a day. Yet, this seems to be kind of a model. You started right here in Quincy that has not taken hold in other parts of the state or the country, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because it really is, when we say innovative, I think that word is used a lot. And, but this truly is kind of, we're ahead of the game here. And I think a lot of different organizations in the state and across the country are going to be looking at this development in Quincy and seeing, wow, is this something that can be replicated? And in fact, we are replicating it ourselves already. We're going to be moving forward with the project to build a new housing resource center in Brockton to replace our existing emergency shelter there. So, we're hoping that this will, serve as a national model. And like you said, it doesn't seem like it would be, it seems like common sense to provide 24/7 resources, but we are a nonprofit and we rely on public resources. And, up until now, we've been funded for overnight services. And people come to us at 6 p.m. with they need a place to stay, but that's not really conducive to connecting with those individuals, finding out where they're coming from, what services they need. Instead, and they leave in the morning and they go out in the community, they go to the library, and we think, well, why don't we create a one-stop shop at our day center so we can help them, we can connect them to our case managers, we can bring in other services and experts in the fields, whether it's behavioral health, addiction support, domestic violence support, bring those to our facility, and so people can, have a place to go. And I think it's really a win-win, not only for the people who rely on our services, but the community as a whole, that there's this place where we have consolidated, streamlined services.
Yeah, to that end, can you talk a little bit about, I know that you're forming, already have a strong partnership with Mannett Community Health Center, right?
Yeah, Mannett Community Health Center will be operating our healthcare clinic on site, which is tremendous. Mannett does, amazing work. Certainly, we all stood by and watched in awe as they responded to the pandemic, and so we're so grateful to them for coming in and operating this healthcare clinic, because we believe that homelessness is a healthcare issue. We've seen the studies and we've crunched our own numbers, and people who are experiencing homelessness are much more likely to be relying on emergency rooms and other emergency resources, and so we believe that having that healthcare component at our housing resource center is going to be critical. That someone can come and get the resources to help them stabilize, maybe find employment, find subsidies for rental assistance, but also connect with the clinic, because a majority of our guests are dealing with some sort of physical disability, or are immunocompromised. So I think it really goes hand in hand, our services, that we're very grateful that Mannett will be a part of this project.
In the short term, Pat, given the current state of the economy, inflation, predictions of spiking energy costs this coming winter, are you seeing that manifest itself right now? And are you concerned about that in the short term?
We are, for sure. I mean, we're seeing individuals and families coming to our doors who have never experienced or been at risk of homelessness before, and it's heartbreaking. I think with the economy right now, coming out of the pandemic, people are struggling to meet their basic needs, whether it's they're paying for childcare or groceries or gas to get to work and back. People are really stretched thin. So we are seeing in housing courts, and certainly people coming to our shelters, individuals who who just never thought they would end up at a shelter or be at risk and in need of help. So with the cold temperatures coming and our numbers, as you know, Joe, increase anyways in the winter months, we are already starting to see. I mean, we in Quincy recently are between Father Bill's place, and we're still operating the satellite site at the Ramada Inn in Dorchester, which we've been operating, for over a year now as part of the depopulation efforts with COVID-19. We're already seeing over 160 guests between those two sites, and so usually we'd be seeing those numbers in like the the real depths of winter. So to see those numbers already before the cold weather arrives is I think a signal that we're in for some tough times, but it really feels like tough times has been the name of the game here for a lot of organizations and human service groups. So we're ready for it, and we'll make sure that no one has to sleep outside in the cold, and that anyone who needs the support and care will have a place to go.
Are there efforts, Pat, or will there be efforts to kind of head homelessness off at the pass, if you will, to reach out to the community before they get into a crisis situation, and how will that work?
Through the new resource center or even now?
Through the new resource center.
Yeah, so the work has already started for us. So the new model, the new service delivery model that will really be housed at the Yawkey Housing Resource Center, the major component of that is a triage department. So that involves outreach workers who are out in the community, identifying people who are sleeping outdoors, trying to get them shelter and connect them to resources. And then also prevention and a diversion specialist. So those staff really are, connecting with people who come in early, hopefully before they even need shelter.
Right.
And say, you know what, I may not make rent next month. I lost my job, or I'm having a family crisis and I don't have a place to stay. They're coming to us before, and our diversion and prevention specialists can work with them and say, okay, do you have a family member you can stay with in the meantime? Or, maybe you qualify for this benefit that's offered that could help you keep up with your rent, so you're not coming into the shelter. So that work's already happening.
Okay.
We already have the triage department, which we started in 2021, and it's only going to grow and build up more with the new resource center. And not only is that the most humane response, is to get ahead of the housing crisis, but it's the most cost effective as well.
Sure. Yeah.
It's much more costly to go into emergency shelter than to provide that upfront service and benefit that would help avoid the emergency stay.
And also, plays right into the goal that you've stated of ending homelessness, right? So the best way to end it is not to let it start.
Absolutely. Yep. I think ending homelessness really is preventing homelessness. And that is our goal, is to, John Yaswinski, our CEO, always says the goal that Father Bill McCarthy said, the goal is to take down the sign at Father Bill's place, which means that this emergency shelter is no longer needed, that we live in a community that doesn't need emergency shelter beds. Now that's obviously, a lofty goal, and, there may always be a need for overnight shelter, but really trying to reduce the number of beds for emergency purposes. And if people need to stay with us, let's reduce their length of stay, so we can connect them with the resources and get them housed more quickly. That's the goal. And we can only do it with an amazing staff, which we're so, fortunate to have, in community support. It's the fight is ongoing, and we're very excited about the future with these housing resource centers. But we know that, we're in it. We're in it to end homelessness, not just to keep the status quo.
Just a minute or so left, Pat, but I wanted to ask you, October is right in front of us. The holiday's not far off. What are plans for getting through the holiday season at Father Bill's?
Well, thank you for asking that. Yeah, it's hard to believe we're already talking about the holidays, but and we are planning for Thanksgiving. As you know, we've had our community meal at Christ Church now for over 30 years, and in recent years it's been scaled down, or at least in 2020 we didn't have the community meal. Last year we opened it up a little bit, and this year we're going to be really returning to the bigger scale community dinner at Christ Church. So we'll be getting more information on our website and our social media channels, helpfbms.org. But yeah, we're going to be looking for volunteer groups, donors, to make sure that not only can we host the community dinner, but we're going to expand our meal delivery option as well. So if any individual or family cannot make it to our community meal on Thanksgiving, we will have volunteers driving meals out to those individuals, homes or apartments, to make sure everyone can celebrate the holiday and have a Thanksgiving dinner.
That's great. So we'll try and have John and or you back before then to remind folks about that. But I wanted to thank you for spending some time with us today. I hope you're feeling a little better into next week and joining us remotely. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I didn't sneeze during the entire interview, so I consider it a smashing success for that reason. Yeah.
Well, mark it as checked off. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
Good to
Thank you so much, and for all your support. You and QATV are just a tremendous partner, and the community of Quincy is very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. We appreciate that, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right, you take care.
Just enough time to check the forecast for you for the rest of the day today. A mix of sun and clouds. I think the clouds are going to win out this afternoon. Cool temperatures, too, right around 60 degrees. Chilly again tonight. And looks like a damp, cool weekend and right into next week as well. Temperatures only in the mid-50s with the remnants of Ian being felt tomorrow and on Sunday. Thanks again to Pat Ronan for joining us today from Father Bill's in Mainspring. Thanks to our crew. Thank you for watching. Monday here on the show, we're going to feature the Torre dei Passeri Club here of Quincy. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary tomorrow. Don't forget our website is anytime, qatv.org. All our latest programs are there. There's news and information, video on demand, live streaming, and much more. For all of us here at QATV, I'm Joe Catalano. Have a great weekend.